This is going to be a short instructional video for all the Cubs, Scouts, Explorers and parents who are going to be spending a night under canvas during the 8th Alton virtual group camp. Tents come in many different shapes and sizes. They may have fly sheets and inners, they may be single skin, they may have steel poles, they may have fiberglass poles, they may be pop-up. The best thing I can do to help you is to say most of the tents will come with a bag similar to this, and inside it, stitched into the bag, will be instructions on how to pitch your tent. So whilst this is going to be a general video, I recommend that you go and read the instructions that are inside the bag of the tent. So what are you going to need to pitch your tent? Well, you're going to need some poles. These particular ones are fiberglass and have some elastic between them to hold them together. You're going to need some pegs. This particular tent has an inner and a fly sheet. And you're also going to need your trusty mallet. Make sure the head on the mallet is nice and tight on the handle so that it's unlikely to come off when you're hitting your pegs into the ground. Right, so here we are at my campground. You can see behind me the area where I'm going to pitch my tent. It's fairly flat and clear of any rubble or rocks or twigs or anything that might damage the ground sheet or make my sleep tonight uncomfortable. Right, so this tent is an outer first, fly sheet first pitch, and it's a tunnel tent. So we need to get the fly sheet, lay it out on the floor, and then get 3 poles to form the tunnel. As I said before, the poles are fiberglass with elastic in between to hold them together. And they very simply clip together into a nice, long, flexible pole, which will easily come apart again afterwards. So that's the poles into the fly sheet, but in windy conditions like this, you've got to make sure that we don't have a giant kite. So let's get it all pegged down and make sure it's all nice and secure. When you're pegging your tent out, peg it out as per the instructions, but in this case I need to peg it out effectively at the 4 corners, and then I can do the poles. When you're putting the pegs in the ground, make sure they go in at a slight angle, because then there's a greater resistance from the ground to stop them from being pulled out by the wind and your tent blowing away. So I'm going to do the first couple of pegs. On there. As you can see, the tent here is a bit slack and may need a little bit of adjustment, so that's what I'm going to do now. The fly sheet's now up. It's not overly taut because of the fact that you need to make sure that there's a bit of give in it for the wind, but it's tight enough. What we'll also do, because of the windy conditions, is put the guy lines out. So I'll get on with that now. So that's the guy lines out and the fly sheet pitched. So it should be nice and secure now, and with the canvas or the fly sheet isn't too tight, but it will rip when pulled or blown around by the wind. Now I need to put the inner in. So let's do this next. Here we are inside this nice 3-man tent. It's all secured down in the fly sheet. We've got the inner here that needs to be clipped in. You'll see I'm pointing at one there. All around the poles, line of the poles, and down at the ground, there are eyelets that the inner tent will clip into. So no pegging out of this one. It's all ready to go and becomes part 1 of the fly sheet once it's in. So there we have it. My inner's in, my tent's up,
and it's ready for me to spend the night in, protected from the wind and the weather and everything else. One point to note, when you put your guy lines out, make sure that they follow the line of the seam or the pole, rather than twisting and turning, because that ensures that the tent canvas itself stays nice and taut.
Just a couple of things to note about your campground. You need to make sure that you've got permission to camp where you're going to camp. The campground itself, or the ground in an area that you're going to pitch your tent, needs to be as flat as possible to give yourself a comfortable night, and free of stones or other obstructions. Firstly, that's to stop the obstructions, especially sharp objects, from puncturing the ground sheet, but also sleeping on rocks is not going to be very comfortable. Try to avoid pitching your tent under trees. Now, this is for several reasons. One, you don't want to be hit by falling branches, or in fact a falling tree at night if it blows down in the wind. And also, the sap from the trees doesn't do your fly sheet a lot of good, and neither does the poop that the birds produce who roost in the trees. When you're camping near water, then make sure, especially rivers, then make sure that you're far enough away that the tent itself is unlikely to get flooded. So make sure that you stay high enough above the floodplain in order to prevent any ingress of water should you have any heavy rain. The other thing is to make sure that the ground itself is not too wet or boggy, because again, that can soak through the ground sheet and make you have a very uncomfortable night. And the last thing is to make sure that the campground itself is sheltered. And if you can't get a sheltered site, then try and make sure that the door of the tent is facing away from the prevailing weather conditions. And that means that the driving rain or wind or whatever it might be, snow, hail, can't come into the tent through the open door when you're making your way in and out. So you've got a nice dry environment in which to spend the night. One thing I did forget to mention in the instructions earlier is to make sure that the area in which you're pitching doesn't have any wild, nasty, horrible beasts that might come and get you and eat you up and savage you like this one is. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy your night's sleep.